Good afternoon also from my side. Thanks to the organizers for inviting me here. As already mentioned, I'm from Eurofound, and just to give you a quick overview for those who might not be that familiar with Eurofound, the full name of this organization is the European Foundation for the Improvement of Living and Working Conditions, and it's a formal agency of the European Commission. We're under the umbrella of DG Employment and Social Affairs, and as the name already suggests, we have quite a broad mandate to provide information and research various fields related to working conditions and living conditions, including social dialogue and industrial relations. And not only because this mandate is so broad, the topics that were just suggested that I'm dealing with, they are somewhat related to that. We are dealing with different types of research. We have surveys, we have observatories, we're doing one-off projects depending on various topics related to, as said, this broad mandate. And what I will be talking about today is one project that we did in 2013-2014. The report has been published about a year ago, which we called the new forms of employment. And the background for us doing this project was that when we were following discussions both at national level as well as at European level, we heard a lot of talks already also this morning from the ILO about new world of work, new forms of work, new forms of employment. And our impression was that everybody talks about it, but nobody really knows what they are talking about. They might have different understandings, different definitions, different entry points, and different triggers for talking about that. So what we wanted to do is to do a kind of a baseline study, a mapping across the EU28 and Norway, what are the new trends on the labor market. And we did so by we have a network of experts in all the 28 European Union member states, as well as in Norway. And we started with asking them what's happening in your country. Tell us in terms of the labor market employment forms, which can be related both to the more formal part, meaning the employer-employee relationship, or it can be more the practical part about working patterns, working processes. And we were dealing with both employees and self-employed, what is happening there. So the experts reported back to us, and we tried then to cluster what they told us that is happening, and finally came up with 9 big trends that we want to characterize more, particularly as regards their effects on working conditions and the labor market as such. And we started then picking these 9 forms and trying to learn more by using data that is available, by using literature, surveys, studies, similar like that. And that exercise was very quickly done because as these forms are so new, you hardly have any data or studies or other secondary material. So what we did is we chose a qualitative research approach, and we did in total 66 case studies across all European member states, as well as these 9 different employment forms, whereby a case study could either be a micro-level employee-employer relationship, or it can be more at macro level, what we call a policy analysis, meaning investigating the legal background, a collective agreement, or a public support instruments. And by that, we try to learn a little bit more. And what the outcome of all this information is a report, as mentioned, published about a year ago. And we have a few copies here that could be made available to you after this session, which summarizes more or less all of our research findings. And on top of that, if you don't have so much time of reading this 150 pages, we have a 2-page executive summary, which is also available in all the languages. So that might be the entry point. And if you find something interesting there, you might want to go to the report and read a little bit deeper there. So this is an overview about these 9 forms that we identified. As said, we're dealing with both the more formal part, the employer relationships, employer-employee relationships, those what you have on the top part of this graph. On the lower part of this graph, you have the more operational work pattern, work processes developments. Similarly, we have differentiated between dependent employees, so that would be everything that is subject to labor law, or the more self-employed. So here you would rather deal with civil law contracts. And because you see that there are somewhere bubbles in between, you see that there is a kind of a mix. There are some forms which directly deal only with one of these altered elements, while some of the forms, they have combinations of different elements. And on top of that, it has to be said that the bubbles that you see here, they should not be, the borders of these bubbles should not be seen to be too strict. So there are overlaps in between these 9 forms, and it can well happen that a specific individual employer-employee relationship fits into more than one of these bubbles because they have elements of both. And a last point that I wanted to say to this slide is, as said, as we started off with giving a little characteristics from the national levels, what is happening there, for some of these forms, they were so new that there is no standardized or harmonized definition, nor even a name, a terminology. So it might well be that if you read that, or also when I talk you through some of these forms later on, I might use a name, or there might be used some names that you have never heard before. That don't be worried about that. Then the reason for that is that we invented the name. So also congratulations then to the interpreters to get a meaningful name in the other languages to that. So what is now the key point of these new forms of employment? First of all, as you already have seen from the previous slide, we have quite a variety, a heterogeneity among them, which means at the end it doesn't make too much sense to talk about new forms of employment as such, because there are so big differences between the individual forms as regards both the characteristics and then, of course, depending on that, the implications that they have for the individual workers and in a more macroeconomic perspective on the labor market. However, what most of them have in common is a specific importance of flexibility. So they come into existence because either the employer or the employee or both of them want or need higher flexibility. And that's a big and important point. And also because of this higher or increasing need for flexibility that we can observe already now, we're quite convinced that these new forms, they won't go away again. They will stay there and they will maybe even increase. I was asked here to talk about social change in business, so I was thinking what is the social aspect of these new forms that we identified here, and I thought that it is mainly about a changed relationship between employer-employee or between a team of workers, co-workers among themselves, different types of cooperation that are triggered by these new forms of employment. But then again, also coming more back to the social protection part, that we have different effects of these new forms here as regards social security level, which at the end also results in some kind of polarization or segmentation on the labor market, because what we also see is that different types of workers are more dominant in these different new employment forms. And some of them are better than others, which means those workers which are in the better forms, they might be well off, while those who are more working in the worse new employment forms might even get a more decreasing social security or income level, which means there is some potential that we have an increase of the divergence on the labor market. What I now would like to do is I talk you very briefly through a few of these forms. I won't have time to talk about all of 9 of them, and I will partly also be very brief just to give you a few examples, and I will come back to these social changes after a while. So the first one which I would like to present to you, that's one of the examples where you will never have heard about the name before because we invented that, and we call this strategic employee sharing. And what we understand by that is companies who have a regular but very small or very fragmented specific HR need. That can be a small or medium-sized enterprise who needs an IT expert or a marketing expert. So they need them, but they don't need them 40 hours a week, 50 weeks a year. So they could hire a business consultant, which has the danger that every time a new person comes in. They could hire a temporary work agency worker, which again has the same problem, but they want to have the continuity. But on the other hand, quite naturally, because they have this fragmented HR need, they can't provide a full-term position. From the side of the worker, they could be self-employed, which in most of the social protection regime is worse than being employed. Or they could go to, let's say, every company needs them for 1 day, so they could go to 5 employers and organize that themselves with 5 part-time jobs, which is a lot of organizational effort for them. So in order to combine the benefits for both sides, they create strategic employee sharing. And what they are doing is that the companies who have this HR need, which can be combined and is plannable and regularly reoccurs, they join together. They build an artificial construction, which we call the employer group. This employer group becomes a separate legal entity, and this separate legal entity becomes the formal and official employer for the worker, which means the employee has just one contact person, which is the employer group. But similarly to a temporary work agency, this employer group sends the worker to the participating companies. So reoccurringly coming to the same workers, which means you come to a win-win situation for both, because the employer has the same people coming back to them again and again. They don't have induction costs, they don't have training costs, they might have higher motivation, higher commitment, because they're working again and again in the same position. While for the worker, in spite of the only fragmented HR needs, they have a permanent full-time position with the employer group. From the model, as said, it's quite similar to a temporary work agency, but there are 3 important differences. First of all, the employer group does not aim to make a profit out of sending the workers to the companies. The second one is that the workers know very well in advance in which company they will be working, because it's only and exclusively the participating companies, so they can't be randomly sent anywhere. It's just the member companies of this employer group, so it's also more security for them. And the third important part is that the participating companies have a joint and several liability towards the worker. So even if it happens that one employer commits to hire this person for 1 day a week and suddenly it doesn't have the demand anymore, it still has to pay for it. So it's really quite a safe position there. You can see more or less the opposite system in job sharing, which most of you will know, particularly the Dutch participants, and you might ask yourself now, why do you have that there? It's not new. Of course, it's not new in the Netherlands, but we also applied a very national perspective, as I mentioned in the beginning, and it is quite new, particularly in some of the new member states, and it also seems to be quite a new trend in public sector, for example. So that's why it ended up as a new form of employment in our study. So I can be very brief about that, because I guess you know what it is about. It's, as said, more or less the opposite of the employee sharing. It is one employer hiring 2, in most of the cases, sometimes even more workers to jointly fill one position. So the workers, again, have a kind of a part-time job, and they're jointly responsible for fulfilling all the tasks that the company would need to have in this job. So again, it fits both for the flexibility of both sides, because the employer has the job filled while the people want or need a part-time job but still can have a good position. And the regulations in most of the countries are in a way that the job sharers are better off than normal part-time employees. They have sometimes even a better social protection or access to the benefits schemes, but particularly in most of the cases they have a better career prospects, access to training and those things. So what can now be said in terms of social change? So what we see with those examples are we have a different situation between the traditional concept, one employer, one employee. We have a 1 to N or N to 1 relationship. And that, at the end, not only affects employer and employee, so kind of hierarchical level, but it also affects the team, particularly in the employee sharing, where the same worker does not only work in one company, but in several companies. So at the end, they have to adapt to different teams, to different co-workers, to different work processes and there. So what we see here at the same time is a new understanding of what part-time means, because at the end, if you consider particularly the employee sharing, they are working part-time, but at the same time they're working full-time, but for different employers. And for the job sharing, I said the other way around, it is at the end, strictly speaking, part-time, but it has several characteristics which go beyond that typical understanding what we have here. And I think I mentioned already the other points. Another big change that also was mentioned already in the introduction, also because the second speaker will focus on that, is that we see a digital revolution, as you called it in the introduction, and we also dealt with that in our study. We have two forms, one which we call the ICT-based mobile work, and the other one which we call crowd employment. And I will not talk about robotization or automation because that will be done in the next session, but I would like to talk you briefly through these forms, which more have to do with the type of work organization or processes that are done. Again, ICT-based mobile work you won't find in any literature so far. It's another term that we invented. And what we understand by that is, at the end, everything that is more mobile than traditional teleworking. So it could well be, it can be applied for both employees and self-employed, and it could well be that the worker has a home office and they have strictly a work desk either with the employer or with the clients, but on top of that they regularly work somewhere else. And this somewhere else can be in the train, it can be in a coffee shop, it can be in a co-working center, or it can be at the football ground while they are waiting for the child to be picked up. So it is very, very mobile. At the end, is working anywhere at any time. And in order to being able to do so, they're very dependent on modern information and communication technologies. So they work a lot on their laptops, on iPads, on iPhones, and all these other new gimmicks that are available here. We found that this employment form is mainly driven by the wish for flexibility by the worker. So it's very much demand-driven because they want to come to a better work-life balance, they want to work like that. And that is also characteristic for the type of workers that we found in this category of new forms of employment. Namely, it's highly skilled, it's knowledge workers, it's more the management type of worker. And the reason for that also is that in order for that to be implemented, you need a comparatively high level of mutual trust between employer and employee. Because at the end, particularly if you are in the dependent employee labor law area, the employer, the company, has very little chance of controlling them anymore because they are just somewhere around and they are working there. The other form that I mentioned that is related to digitalization is what we call crowd employment. And you might have come across this term. You certainly have come across similar terms that are used for that, like the sharing economy, the gig economy, collaborative economy. That's more or less all the same that we are meaning here. And here the point is that you have an online platform, and this online platform serves as a tool to meet supply and demand at the labor market, which means you have a company, at the end it could also be an individual, who wants to have a certain task to be done. Let's get back to the example that I started with, a small and medium-sized enterprise. They want to have a new logo. So they put on the platform, I want to have somebody who creates a new logo for me. The logo should have 2 circles and a triangle, and it should be blue and red. Who can do it for me? And then you have all the designers somewhere around the world. They get aware of this ad at the end, what it is, and then they give their offer. They say, well, I can do it for €100 in 2 hours. The next one says, well, I can do it for €50, but I need 4 hours. And then it's up to the client to pick. So it's a very virtual way of working, and we found it done by both big companies and small companies, as said, even individuals. Most of the cases, the provision of the task is done online, virtual, but there are also examples where then the provision of services is done really physical and local. So an example here would be that I just bought a shelf from IKEA and I can't assemble it myself, so I put it on a platform, and some of my neighbors then votes for it and comes to my house and builds it up. So that could also be done through this matching platform, which means at the end, in terms of the type of work or the work organization, it's not really new. What is new is, again, the use of the modern technologies, namely the internet, of matching them. And what you see also here on the graph, it says agreement, and that is done on purpose, because in most of the cases, you're here in a space where you don't have any legal regulations or any collective agreements surrounding that. The workers are in most of the cases considered to be self-employed and freelancers, and the platform says, well, I'm only doing the matching, everything else is up to you. So it depends on the worker and client relationship, whether they do a formal contract or just some kind of an agreement. And we also have to bear in mind, in most of the cases we are talking here not about a proper job as we might understand it, but about tasks and maybe even micro tasks. There are statistics available from one of the biggest platforms, the Amazon Mechanical Turk, who came to the result that 90% of the tasks are sold for less than 10 cents. So do your calculations of how many tasks you would need to do to come to a decent work or a decent income, as you have said there. So social change again. What do we see here? We see this big influence of modern information and communication technologies, of the internet, of the virtual world, of finding work or doing work. We have a new understanding of the place of work and the time of work, because at the end, it's really not place-bound and time-bound. It's really about the result to be provided here. And finally, what we also see here is, I mentioned before, it's not really about a job anymore, particularly as regards the crowd employment. It's about doing individual tasks, and you somewhat lose the integration in the bigger business, the whole process as such, particularly as regards the crowd employment, but it might also be a danger for the ICT-based mobile work. They might have, as said, more this managerial knowledge worker role and be better involved, but at the end, as they are absent from the physical workspace, there is also some kind of loss of interaction with others. And as a final very quick point, and I won't go into detail about that, but as I mentioned, we were not only looking at dependent employees, labor law relationships, but also a lot is going on in terms of self-employment. We see increasing self-employment rates, at least in some of the European countries, and what we found is not so much about the different types of work that they are doing or different client or worker relationships, but what we found striking is there seems to be new endeavors in terms of to cooperate, to have peers around you, to exchange with other self-employed, with other freelancers, mainly driven by the need of overcoming this kind of isolation or smallness aspect that is related to self-employed and freelancers, which means coming back again to the social change. What we see here is while one might have the stereotype of self-employed freelancers, small enterprises, entrepreneurs, they are just themselves, that's not the whole truth anymore. It's rather about cooperating with each other even more. And what I want to show you now as a final point, as I mentioned, we have quite a big heterogeneity across these different types of new forms of employment that we identified, and that not only relates to the characteristics but also to the implications. And what you see here on this graph is the development of working conditions. So the further right, the better are the working conditions, the further left, the worse are they. And the same for the macroeconomic perspective on the other axis with the labor market development, so the positive ones in the upper corner and the worse ones in the lower corner, which means the further up an employment form is in the upper right corner, the more beneficial it can be assumed to be on average for the worker and the employer and the labor market as such. And you can see here that, I said, those are now averages. It can well be that an individual employment relationship completely does not fit this picture, even fits into the bubble of the new employment form. But in principle, you can see that there is quite a diverse picture. You have clearly some which have a better potential than other ones. And what we found quite striking is that without much data being available, it seems that the ones which are in the lower left corner are much more widespread than the ones which are in the upper right corner. And that brings us to my conclusions and policy pointers. I already said we have to be aware that these new things are happening, and they won't decrease and they won't go away, so we need to be prepared for that. There are some of these new employment forms which have a very good potential for both sides, resulting in a win-win situation, while for other ones there are some concerns, not at least from the side of the trade unions, and fair enough to have them. So what we see as potential interventions from public side, but also from the social partners, is to start with awareness raising that these things are happening and what could be the potential positive and negative effects for both sides. And then also for most of these forms, there is a good part of improvement potential as regards the frameworks, either legal frameworks or collective agreements, because they might either be non-existent because these forms are so new, or they might not be fit for purpose, or they might change so often or be so complex that at the end you can hardly operationalize them, implement them in practice. But on top of that, at least in my opinion, the framework, be it legal or collective agreements, is not sufficient. So we need something more, and I called it here the safety net. And that could, for example, be an enhanced role of a labor inspectorate to be, again, more aware or know what they should be looking at if they are in a company. And finally, what we also found very important is that this study that you find here, it should not be seen as the Bible, and that's now it, and we stop here, but we certainly need to learn more about that. It says that was a first baseline study, a first mapping, and we certainly need to learn more about the characteristics and the potential implications so that we can know better what to do for there in the future. And that's what is meant here in terms of the last point, exchange of experiences and lessons learned, because that's not only research task, but it's also particularly social partners, governments, and also cross-national. And that's it from my side. So thank you for your attention.